Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I'm going to talk about Keyforge and why I think Keyforge is important. So I want to be clear. I just want to give my biases up front. Basically, I am a little biased on this game. Keyforge, brand new collectible card game coming out from Fantasy Flight Games and Richard Garfield. And I really feel it's incredibly important to the entire TRPG, to the entire tabletop hobbying space. So why? Here's the issue. So Magic the Gathering came out in 1993. It's absolutely mammoth. It is. I can't tell you how important MTG is, but I'll just tick them off, right? It put a huge amount of money into the tabletop space, a massive amount of money. In addition to that, it is the absolute anchor for most FLGSs. So basically, almost all FLGSs now, if you have a friendly local game shop, the only question is how deep into Magic you are. Do you just sell the decks and constructed decks and maybe give a couple of places to play, or do you run PTQs? All FLGSs have Magic. It's not even a question. It's just such a moneymaker in the industry. So basically, Keyforge coming out is really a massively important aspect to the entire tabletop genre. It is going to be a ripple, or it's going to be a tsunami, right? So Keyforge is going to be a comet hitting in the ocean, and that's just going to just wash up a few ripples on the shore of the rest of the hobby, and specifically the city of Magic the Gathering, or it's going to be a tsunami. It's just going to sweep in, and it's just going to hit, right? Now, so that's the issue, is everybody needs to pay attention to Keyforge, because it really does have the distinct possibility of disrupting the entire tabletop genre. And the reason why is Magic the Gathering is so big and so large that it really controls the entire tabletop space. Nothing in tabletop, not board games, there's not a single product that has the same impact that tabletop has on the whole, that MTG has on the entirety of the tabletop industry, tabletop gaming industry. All right, so why is Keyforge important? So I think the reason why Keyforge is important is just it is Richard Garfield coming back to see if he can do it again. And so here's the other thing that I think is really critically important about Keyforge. Keyforge is really not a collectible card game. It's a collectible deck game, right? So the question is, has Richard Garfield iterated within the space of tabletop games? Has Richard Garfield iterated within the CCG, the collectible card game market, or has he created a new market exactly like he did in 1993? And I think I'm not sure that a CDG, a collectible deck game, is creating a new market, but I will say this. I feel like what Fantasy Flight Games and Richard Garfield did is, it looks to me like they sat down in a room with a whiteboard and said, let's figure out everything that's wrong with Magic, and let's try to knock off every peg we can, and just hit every item we can in there. So let's talk about it, right? So let's talk about why this works where Magic Gathering fails. So one, I want to be super clear, WotC has not done anything wrong with Magic. They have done so well with that brand. I think it's near flawless execution. They've done a tremendous job of bringing that game up through 25 years of creating Magic the Gathering. But when you're 25 years old, right, and you're iterating, doing pretty much the same thing you've been doing for 10 or 15 or 20 years, you're ripe to be disrupted, right? And so this is not happening because Wizards of the Coast rested on their laurels. This is happening because of a timing issue. Magic the Gathering is ripe to be disrupted. Okay. All right, so what can they disrupt about Magic the Gathering? What are the worst things about Magic the Gathering that would have went on that list of, this is bad about Magic the Gathering, let's fix this in Keyforge? Well, the biggest thing is net decks. Net decks are basically the idea that People don't really build their deck anymore in Magic the Gathering, not in FNM, and certainly not at the PTQ. 7 out of 8 of the last Pro Tour decks were red decks with, Goblin Chain Whirler. And literally 7 out of the 8 decks that were top 8 were exactly the same deck, right? And so there really is, so that's one of the problems is people don't really feel like if you make your own, you can make your own deck in Magic, but you're just not going to win with it. If you just copy the Pro Tour deck, you're going to win with those. This fixes that problem. Keyforge will not have that problem where you will never see a PTQ with Keyforge where the top 8 decks are going to be the same, right? They're going to be fundamentally different. So I think that's really interesting. The other thing is, so basically it fixes the net deck issue that Magic the Gathering has. Another issue that it massively fixes is bulk. Bulk are cards that every Magic the Gathering serious player has in the thousands. Bulk are commons and uncommons that have that have no value in and of themselves and are literally, the reason why they call it bulk is they sell them in bulk. I find this incredibly disrespectful, and I always wish that people would put these together, make decks, give them to inner city kids or, find some use for this. But Wizards of the Coast, and I really don't, this is not me downing the Wizards of the Coast. This is me saying there's a timing issue that's about to happen. So let's look at what's happening and see what's going to happen for Wizards of the Coast. But one of the things is Wizards of the Coast really could not embrace Pauper. Pauper is when you play Magic the Gathering with commons and uncommons. You can play Magic the Gathering with no rares and have an incredibly good time, but nobody does. And so this is just one of those things where it's a problem in Magic. Keyforge fixes the bulk problem of Magic the Gathering. It completely fixes the bulk problem of Magic the Gathering. Here's another one, pre-releases. Pre-releases are amazing. I'm so thankful to Wizards of the Coast for the work they do on Keyforge, for the work they do on Magic the Gathering, and pre-releases are some of the most fun events I have. I have never, ever, every 3 months, I put down $25 for myself, $25 for my youngest son, and me, maybe my oldest daughter. So it's 2, 3, sometimes 4 people will come in on a pre-release. I pay between $50, $75, $100 every 3 months, and I'm so happy to put that money out. I get lots of packs. I get prize support. I get the fun of playing in a tournament. All of it's awesome, right? Well, there's some real villains at a lot of pre-releases. A lot of people don't talk about this, but I'm going to talk about it because Keyforge fixes it, and that is the pre-release cheaters, right? Pre-release cheaters, the way pre-releases work is they will run pre-releases all through the weekend, right? So they start at midnight release on Friday. There's a Saturday tournament. There's a Sunday tournament. This happens in hundreds, if not well over 1,000 FLGSs all over the country every 3 months, right? And what cheaters do is they get in on the midnight release. They take those cards, they sneak them in, and then they build their deck, their pre-release deck with 2 or 3 copies of commons or uncommons or even rares, and they build decks that can't be legitimately made with just the cards that they got in the pre-release sets. So pre-release cheaters are a real problem, and in Saturday and Sunday tournaments on pre-releases, often you'll see 6, 10, 12 packs of prizes go to cheaters, and it is really, really disturbing and upsetting, right? And it's frustrating, and it cannot happen with Keyforge, right? And so, bulk, pre-release cheaters, net decks, these are 3 of the biggest problems that exist within MTG. They're all fixed by Keyforge, right? So I really feel that Keyforge is important, and that's why Keyforge is important. Is it really fixes virtually every single major problem that exists with Magic the Gathering, and in addition to that, it is perfectly timed to disrupt Magic the Gathering. So that's why I think Keyforge is really important. Just a prediction, I think Keyforge is going to be a tsunami. I really do. I think it's going to be a major success. I think Magic the Gathering is going to struggle with it for 2 to 5 to 10 years, if not permanently. And I really think it has a chance of reshaping the entire tabletop gaming hobby. I am calling it now. I am saying that I think Keyforge is going to go very, very big. And I think it's going to impact a lot of games. So that's my take on Keyforge and why it's important, specifically why it is important. Thank you. Please consider liking and subscribing.